8, 7, 6, 4. Thanks once again for joining us here at Chopping It Up for another mini episode of Prime Cuts. This week we're chopping up the 1973 British folk horror classic, The Wicker Man. Directed by Robin Hardy and starring Edward Woodward and Christopher Lee, the film was inspired by David Pinner's 1967 novel, Ritual. The plot centers on the visit of a police officer, Sergeant Howie, to the isolated Scottish island of Summerisle in search of a missing girl. Howie, who is a devout Christian, is appalled to find that the inhabitants of the island have abandoned Christianity and now practice a form of Celtic paganism. This movie is unsettling, it's haunting, it's atmospheric. It's been referred to as the, quote, Citizen Kane of horror movies, end quote. And it's generally considered one of the best horror films of all time. If you're interested in watching this movie, it's now available for free via the Plex app. Just upload that and you're off and running.
And
oh, is it on Tubi?
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I watched it.
God
yeah.
Damn it. I don't know why I didn't go there first. Well, Just Watch is a piece of shit. I don't know why we look it up. It's never right. All right. As a reminder, Prime Cuts is designed as a quick-hitting, free-form conversation where we discuss a breadth of horror mediums, including anthologies, theatrical releases, graphic novels, shorts, and other forms of media. There is no set agenda here as we shoot from the hip and provide any gleaned insights from our respective viewings. Okay, Jeannie, this one is it's your baby. I know you dig it. I'd never seen it before. I do vaguely recall that there's the remake starring Nicolas Cage. So I'd always presumed based on that it was corny and not worth viewing. But after my first viewing, and this was my first viewing, there's a lot going on. What do we think? Well, first of all, so I know Jeannie's seen it a million times. Yeah. Sled, Joel, either of you guys seen it?
Nope.
You never? Oh, Sled, you never saw it? I thought for some reason you did. Anyone seen that? I
just suggested it as a springtime.
I saw
based on its
the synopsis
reputation.
Yeah.
Well,
I saw the Nick Cage one.
You did see the Nick Cage one. How does it match up with this one?
Yeah, that where the meme comes from.
Well, how does it match up with this?
The Nick Cage one is trash.
Well, I assume so, but like plot-wise, does it adhere closely to
similar? Yeah, it's. I mean, it's really similar.
What something similar to this? Do you guys want to run through the cast and crew real quick, or no?
Well, I mean, you said one of the or the two main leads, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I did a little short thing. I know we don't usually do this, but I just to get it in. It's a British movie actually, which is set in Scotland. None of the leads are Scottish actually.
And they're all English, I think.
Right. It's one of them, Britt Eklund, I think, is Swedish.
Yep.
Director Robin Hardy.
Right.
So the director Robin Hardy only did 3 movies. I looked it up. Some throwaway movie that didn't do anything. And then in 2011, he did The Wicker Tree, which is considered, quote, the spiritual sequel, not a straight up sequel, which I don't believe did very well or got much acclaim. It's funny about him. And I was just like looking at the movie itself. And I guess we're just jumping right in. Like,
yeah,
he's not a great director. He's competent, but like there's some like choppy cuts and there's nothing creative as far as what you're looking at. And I think in some weird way that gives it like a found footage or like or like a documentary type vibe. Did you guys feel like that at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely like there's some shaky camera movement.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And kind of like from that point of view, like you're almost the point of view of Sergeant Howie or Officer Howie or
whatever. I liked how he played it so straight. Like
I read stuff about him like buying the costume that he wore, the police uniform was like a size too small, and he did that on purpose. He wanted to be like so buttoned up, so stiff, so tight. He doesn't give you much by way of facial expression. He plays it very straight, like you said. I think it works perfectly, right? Like,
yeah.
Sled, what do you think?
Go ahead. Sorry.
What?
I'm gonna have to watch it again. I have to watch it again. I really had trouble getting into this movie. I don't know if
it has the early 70s like we're not going to give you much. We're going to play this real slow kind of thing.
It's like a very much Charlie and the Chocolate Factory vibe.
But it doesn't move super fast. Like we're all products of a certain age, right? Like so This movie doesn't move anywhere near that pace. And really, the payoff is the last scene.
Mhm.
Right?
Well, that's what you're getting at. It's the same. It's like we're going to take our time because there's only one thing happening in this movie.
Yep.
There's only one kill in this movie,
only one
right?
kill.
And it comes at the
is
end.
Wild, right?
Yeah.
One quick thing just about Britt, whatever. What's her
Britt
name?
Eklund.
She dated two things. She dated Rod Stewart. I don't know if you know
Yep.
that. She
Yep.
was
Well,
pretty
that
famous.
That was going to be my thing. I was going to say her boyfriend at the time was Rod Stewart.
Rod Stewart.
He tried to block the release of the movie
Yes.
He tried to
Yeah.
buy up all the like whatever the prints.
Why?
because she was nude in it and he couldn't
Did
deal
you
with
know
that.
that is not her butt?
Yeah, it's not her butt though. It's a body double.
It's her breasts. Like her breasts are hers.
Yeah.
And it's not her voice. Like
Well-
they dubbed over her voice for most of it.
Well, the crazy thing is, so the reason why she wanted the body double was because she was pregnant, and I guess she had just started showing or wasn't,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
as thin as and it wasn't
Well,
Rod
I thought-
Stewart's baby.
I thought that he didn't find out. Didn't the director didn't even find out? I think until they were filming for like a couple weeks or something like that.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. I think it was like she knew, and she didn't feel like her body was where she wanted it to be. Although I think retroactively, I think she claimed that she had nothing to do with that, and she was mad that it wasn't her body. So there's some apocryphal storytelling
Yeah.
going
Yes.
on.
Well, I found the same thing with Christopher Lee. So Christopher Lee, I think, was Dracula not too long before this and wanted to get out of it,
Yeah.
right? And so supposedly, there's two strains of the conversation out there. One is he took a dramatic pay cut to do this movie, just
I
because.
thought I read he didn't get paid at all.
That's
And
right,
the
so-
other one
yeah.
is that he didn't get paid at all, right? And that's very different, right? Like
Yeah.
doing it pro bono is different than like I'll do it on the cheap, right? But he did great. I thought Christopher Lee was
Oh, yeah. So-
spectacular.
Yeah, so he plays Lord Summerisle, right? And that's
Lord
it's
Summerisle.
supposed to be, it takes place on this island off the coast of Scotland. And he plays it with like a Willy Wonka,
Yeah.
vibe. But he really straddles the absurd with like the sinister and
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
mysterious. Like he didn't
Do you
it
know the
works for
deal
me.
with him?
he was like
he
on
was-
acid the whole time. What was the
Well,
deal?
probably. But during the war, meaning World War II,
Mhm.
he was like British special services, right? Like he
Special
like
forces.
yeah, he went out and like killed people. Like and actually when he like assassinated people, right? Like
Right.
when he did Lord of the Rings, there's a part where I think he gets stabbed in the back, right? By like one of the other wizards, right? And there's this famous story where he's talking to the director of that, and he's like, "Oh no, when you stab a man in the back, they don't yell, they gasp because you punctured their lung." And everyone's like,
Like what?
Chris, whoa, okay, let's take 5, everyone.
He's menacing at points here,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
in
It's
a
a little worrisome, yeah.
like
Yeah.
when he says that I'll butcher it. I can't get the exact quote, but when he's talking to Officer Howie in his place after he shows him around, and he's like, I think you should have a seat, like, something about getting a shock or hearing something shocking is tough on the knees. You should sit down
Yeah.
for this. And it's just such a he's in total control, of everything, and he knows his information is power, and he has all this information that Howie is trying to find, and he lords that over him really effectively. One more. So Edward Woodward is Sergeant Howie. He was in The Equalizer and Hot Fuzz. Those are the only things I knew him
Oh,
from.
that's awesome. Hot fuzz.
So
I think Christopher Lee himself also was really wasn't he into the occult in real
Oh,
life?
I don't know.
That would not surprise me. I didn't see that, but a lot of guys were. This is the early 70s.
I was gonna say we found out around the same time frame for what was the one we did with Mia Farrow and
Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby. Sammy Davis Jr. was a fucking Satanist, so like
there were a lot of people dabbling.
or Satanist adjacent or whatever, whoever
Yeah.
he was hanging around with. I guess it was, but you know what? That was part of what I got from this movie was that whole sort of late 60s, early 70s, just post hippie counterculture movement vibe where the wave has crested and it's receding back, and it's all you're left with is the ugliness of like the excess and indulgence of sex and drugs and rock and roll and all that stuff, like not smoothed over and made pretty, but like, oh, here's the real deal behind this is like, we don't have a coherent ideology, right? We're not averse to violence or anything like that if it serves our purposes. You get that vibe from it there, with how the townsfolk are parading around and stuff. The one thing I got was I looked this one up. So because the movie's named Wicker Man, and you don't see the Wicker Man figure until the end, that they've built this giant 100-foot structure out of wicker. Let's see. Concept of the Wicker Man has apocryphal origins. It derives from the single sentence in the Commentari de Bello Gallico, which is commentaries on the Gallic War by Julius Caesar. He claimed that the Druids of the Gauls built effigies out of sticks and placed living men inside, then set them on fire to pay tribute to the gods. Caesar also claimed that the men chosen were typically criminals or slaves. Modern historians have not been able to verify Caesar's account, and its veracity has been questioned. But I think that's what we're drawing from here, largely for the film.
Sure. Did we say what we all thought of this, or do we do that at the end?
Oh yeah, no. Let's go ahead and run through. We don't have any structure for Prime Cuts, but what'd you think, Joel?
So, I really liked it. I mean, I'm not really a folk horror person. Like, it's not my favorite genre, but this is like as good as that get. I mean, like this Midsommar, like stuff that was directly influenced by this. And this.
You said Midsummer, right? For sure. Yeah. So I saw Midsummer, whenever it was popular a few years ago. I loved that. And I'm the same as you. It's like, I don't think I'd seek out folk horror per se, but like
every now and again I check
when it's done right. Hell yeah. And then when I watch this, like, well, yeah, this is directly where it draws from.
I haven't seen Midsommar. Does it actually have anything supernatural in it?
No, not really. No. I mean, not directly.
No.
It's more like a cult.
Yeah.
Like
Sled, where this one maybe fails you if you feel like it was hard to get into. Midsummer as an upgraded thing is similar.
It's a lot more,
but you'll get drawn into it. You'll like that a lot better. You should give that. You should give that a shot.
Yeah, I think probably The Ritual might be.
I love The Ritual.
With the guys through the woods.
Started off really strong, and then I thought kind of blew
we
it.
We talked about that. The ending. We talked about that. No, it's so.
Ritual,
watch Midsommar. That will be better for you.
You'll like that. Yeah, that's it. I honestly think Midsommar is a better film. So I would probably go. This is like a 4.4 for me, right? Like it's real good.
Well,
I might give Midsommar like a 4.5. Right?
Well, I'll jump in because I've never seen it either, and then Jeannie and you and Slade can weigh in. I'll tell you straight up, I gave it a 5. I think, and now this is one of those things, Jeannie, you talked about. This is like, or Sled, you did too. It's like, how are we grading this? Are we grading this for ourselves, or for the genre, or for overall better movie, or for? I don't know. I guess I was looking at it from like what it sets out to do. It does perfectly. You can't cut a single line of dialogue from the movie. You can't cut a single scene that's shot from the movie. It is muscular, and there is no fat on this movie. And for a one kill, slowly paced thing, it had me really into it. It just, and I'm a little bit of a mark for that weirdo townsfolk island bullshit stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm into this. And the one guy's trying to untangle all of this weirdness, cult stuff. I really dug it. No, I thought it was perfect. So I gave it a 5. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I love it again because it's kind of creepy, added with a little absurd. It's just so off-putting. It's like
it's unsettling. You're at ill at ease.
Yes, it's very, very much so. And like I think about, when the sergeant goes into the bar of the Green Man, and like just the bartender, the Alder, I think his name is. He's just so like,
he's a fucking skeezy weirdo. Yeah.
Yes.
And he like brings his daughter out, and he's sort of like,
positions her.
Yeah, it's like he's selling his daughter off.
Proposition, but he positions, right? Like,
he's like, here's my hot.
Is it really his daughter?
Right. Right. There's
Or
a
is
right
it
because
like this game that they kind of play? Because then
Right.
they launch into
Is
the
she
whole
just bait,
the
like-
landlord's daughter.
right that whole which is why it's like we were talking about this before we went on. This thing's like a half a beat away from being a fucking musical, right? Like there's I don't know how close attention you paid watching it. There's a musical interlude where they're singing like every 17
Yeah.
minutes or something.
Maybe less. Like Michael, I actually looked it up. There is a musical for this. It's called.
Yeah, I thought I read that the directors announced
Yeah.
that it was going to be like midway through it, and people were like, "What the fuck?" Like,
it's called Playing with Fire or with Fire, the Wicker Man musical. I've obviously not seen it, but I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That someone picked that up and ran with it.
According to Seamus Flannery in a subsequent documentary, director Robin Hardy surprised the cast by suddenly announcing midway through filming that they were making a musical.
What the hell? What?
I mean, this just seems like there was a lot
of weird shit. Yeah. Well, I told you I started watching it the first, so I gave it, I don't know, like 2.5 viewings, right? I got through it twice and then I had only time to watch it for the third. And the first time I watched it, I got it on late in the evening. Everyone went to bed, the kids were down, my wife was asleep, and I was like a few cocos into it, and I was like, oh, am I too drunk to watch this? Because it was fucking bizarre. But then I realized watching it sober the next time, no, it's just really weird.
Weird.
Yeah.
Like everyone gives a weird look that you're like, wait a second, are they trying to tell me something?
So my favorite short story for this kind of stuff is actually this one by Thomas Ligotti, and it's called The Last Feast of the Harlequin. This is like where it came up.
I read that.
It's so fucking weird.
Well, hold on. Before you turn on Thomas,
I read Ligotti because that's what a lot of what first season of True Detective was supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's what originally kind of.
That's what I was going to say.
Direction.
I was going to say, Sled, you and Joel got to give us Ligotti background, like, because other people aren't going to know who that is.
I honestly, I did. It's like his writing is too fucking weird. Like, it almost makes it hard to get into. Like, because
some of it's very like he gets like he kind of digresses into philosophy rants.
Yeah, he could definitely use an editor.
Good, but I think The Last Feast of the Harlequin's one of his tighter stories.
Yeah, it was. That's why it's
very much like the Wicker Man, right? Like you're just like, oh, except there is like some.
Although it's overtly supernatural, like
yeah, exactly. There is, but there's still like you're in a village. There's like a weird cultish thing going on. It's just when you peel it back, like imagine one more scene that there's a reason they're doing the giant Wicker Man thing. That's what that story is. And it's just there's so many of these movies and short stories and so on that are influenced by the Wicker Man. I just didn't realize it until I watched it. I was like, oh shit, that's blah blah blah.
Yeah. Well, I think the major thing that we do need to talk about, because if there is one theme, and I mean, there's a lot of themes. There's a lot going on in this. In fact, it's like I almost feel like I wish we'd done a full ep on it where we were able to do the research we usually do. I mean, it's super fun. We can go off the cuff, but the major one is obviously contemporary Christianity, right? Judeo-Christian beliefs versus paganism and Celtic paganism, right?
Yeah.
And so you have Sergeant Howie, who comes to the island, and we come to find out that he is a devout Christian. He's engaged. He has a fiance. He's a virgin. He's saving himself for marriage for her. He has his Bible with him. He stays at the inn above the local tavern to investigate this missing girl, Rowan Morrison. He received an anonymous letter from someone on the island saying she's been missing for several months, and so on and so forth. And so you see him walking through town, and he's experiencing these townsfolk who have a belief in what, quote unquote, the old gods, and they're copulating openly in the fields. They're everywhere. I wrote a note, and I think my note just says so many unnecessary titties, which if you know me, I would never ever write such a thing.
Never said that before in your life.
Right. And so they're not teaching, in the classrooms, they're teaching these 12-year-old girls that the school teacher is saying, the maypole is this phallic penis symbol, which is the life-giving source to our belief system and, in our religion.
the man on the woman, and the man becomes a tree. And
Oh yeah,
There's all sorts of
the
stuff, right,
erection, that like all that stuff. And so Sergeant Howie's like happens to be listening. He's outside the door to the classroom, and he like interrupts. He's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't teach them this stuff, like he doesn't believe in it. And so, and he's also tempted, speaking of the innkeeper, who basically tells his young adult daughter to like show him to his room above the tavern. And she essentially she throws herself at him. I mean, he doesn't take her up on it, which I have a note, which ironically is what seals his fate. Right.
Right.
His where does it say it? Well, it doesn't matter, but yeah, that's what it is. The subplot of the film is that Neil Howie is a virgin and resists invitations to have sex with Willow. His virginity, it turns out, to be the reason for him being chosen as a human sacrifice, as pagans appreciate a virgin sacrifice.
Well, they're also, I mean, at least the impression I got is they're also going for like some level, or maybe I just read this in, but some level of genetic diversity, right? Like, because they're trying to get like someone outside of this community to join it. Right. Like they definitely have two different things going on at any given point, right? There's some sort of fertility worship and some sort of nature worship, right? Like the fields and
the entire thing is about rebirth, right? Life, and they don't want to say death, but life, and then leaving the human form, and then rebirth, whether it is in the form of the sun, the rain, the crops, another animal, whatever spiritual form you take in place of that. And that's set in stark opposition, obviously, to the life-death binary that Christianity brings you, right? You die, your physical body is dead, and then you go to heaven or you go to hell or whatever you do from there. But like, you definitely, your energy doesn't disperse and go into the tree in Christianity.
Into something else.
Into something else. It doesn't, which is funny because you speak of the contradictions and the parallels. It's like there's transmutation in both. There's the transubstantiation of taking the blood of Christ and eating it, right, and that turns into something else. Literally, it's the same thing that they're saying with this pagan belief. And I actually came out of it feeling like there was some measure of circumlocution in the movie, meaning like they talk around what they're talking about, but it actually is what they're talking about. To me, this is an atheist movie. I know that seems crazy the way it's set up as like I was saying, this Christian versus paganism thing, but ultimately the pagan beliefs fail the townsfolk. Their crops die. The worshiping of the gods and that's not going to help. We know that, right? We know that because Lord Summerisle's grandfather, who's an agronomist and scientist, founds the island and creates this seed or these crops that can grow, these special kind of fruit that can grow. It didn't come from some fucking belief in magical spaghetti monsters, and it came through science. So Lord Summerisle, he's a grifter. He knows this is bullshit, right? So so the God stuff failed. And then on the Christian side, Sergeant Howie, as he's locked in the Wicker Man at the end, begs for his life, pleads to his God to save me. Mm-hmm. And the God, there's no God. You die in a fire, you're dead. That's it. Like, so to me, this is just like the folly of belief in a higher power. I don't know if that was just my take.
I liked there was something, I'm trying to find it. There was something they said about how it was easier to believe. It was easier to believe in reincarnation than resurrection.
Yeah, they did say something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think it was the I can't remember. Like Lord Summerisle says, quote, Christ had his chance and he blew it. That was his critique of modern Christianity right there. That was the failure of that whole deal. I don't know that I felt like it was as overtly atheist, right? Like the director was trying to make a point.
Oh, it's not overtly. Yeah, it's not overtly atheist. That's why I said circumlocution. Like he was talking around that. What it really is it's telling us it's criticizing and comparing paganism and Christianity.
Yeah.
If anything, it's more of an indictment. Well, so the original text, the source text that it draws from, the novel, the ritual, is actually, it's not pagan. It's specifically and explicitly Satanism. right? So that's the binary that's set up there as God, devil, right? We
Mhm.
don't get that in the movie. They muddy the waters intentionally, which I like, right? It leaves it up to interpretation.
Right.
And you don't know, like, look, I mean, I wrote down here, like, there is no bad guy or good guy. Like, I wrote down, I actually agree with the beliefs of the pagan cult. I actually agree. Hear me out here. Okay. I agree with the pagan cult. Okay. People don't die. When the human form expires, they become part of the air, the trees, the fire, the water, the animals, all that stuff, right? They live in a as close to an agrarian society as you can get. They rely on their crops in modern day. They work together like as a commune. They share in all of the resources. They share each other's sexualities and desires and whatever. Everyone
Right.
drinks, everyone's merry, everyone does all of these things. They celebrate together, they teach together, their kids learn. Just because I think a lot of this is really a critique on the strictures and dogma attendant to contemporary Judeo-Christian religion, right?
I think that's probably true. I also think there is something to what you said earlier, where we're remembering that we're in two things. One, we're 1973, so we're coming out of flower power, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a critique there where it's like, oh, these seemingly free love, pacifist types, right, are about to do something truly grotesque and violent.
Yeah.
Right. So there's something there that I think that's neat. I also think that whoever adapted the screenplay, and I'm not sure who it was, I assume it's the director. I just didn't check because this is an informal episode. So I don't have to do my segment. But whoever did that did a really interesting thing where they, like you said, they made it about paganism and Christianity as opposed to Satanism and Christianity, which was kind of a crowded field. Right, because you just had Rosemary's Baby 5 years before, you just had The Exorcist, right?
Yeah.
You got a lot of movies coming around that are Satan and God, right? Like,
it was the writer, by the way, is Anthony Schaefer. He did a screenplay for Hitchcock's Frenzy. So I remember, like we said, the director didn't do much. He was not. He was not really venerated in as far as directors go in film, but the writer is the one who really did the yeoman's work. So you hit that one right on the head.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty clever script, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty well done.
No, I liked it.
Yeah, this is what the quote when the teacher, she was like, "Here we do not use the word," and then she's like, "Dead."
Yeah, she lips it. Yeah.
Right.
But when Sergeant Howie's just kind of like aghast, they've never learned anything of Christianity. And I like what she says here. The children find it far easier to picture reincarnation than resurrection. Those rotting bodies are a great stumbling block for the childish imagination.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly the segment.
Interesting.
So instead of the rotting bodies, right, when they die here, they get buried, they plant a tree symbolizing rebirth and life from that, and they hang their umbilical cord from the tree branch. That was what was hanging on the tree branch.
Where do they save all these umbilical cords at?
Oh God!
Give them to the mothers.
Look, you're talking about people who put frogs in each other's mouths to get rid of sore throats. So I don't know what they do with umbilical cords. I don't want to fucking know.
Look, a minute ago you were
got
like,
cold
storage. This sounds perfect to me. Everything sounds fine to me. There were titties everywhere on this island. They had to. By the way, Sled, I wish that you were able to give it more time to take a look, because the actual island itself, I think, is a character. When you look at like these jagged cliffs and that rocky terrain of Scotland, it was. And I don't know anything about the flora and the fauna. And I know you're a certified arborist, not a flower guy, not a fucking plant guy. But like, did you notice anything there? Have you ever been to Scotland, by the way? Anyone?
I don't know if it would have too much in common with anything here.
One thing that is interesting for all of you is that the opening scene, you know how it's like the cool cliffs and all that?
Yeah.
That's not Scotland.
Wait, it's like Africa or something? It's
South Africa. Because the director was on a shoot for like a commercial there. and he just thought it
Really?
was cool. And then like the trees fit better. at the
That's
time
right.
period.
Because this was supposed to be obviously a summertime
Spring,
deal, right?
right, yeah.
A spring
It
deal.
was winter.
And it was winter, and they had the cast sucking on ice cubes so that you
Yep.
couldn't see their breath when they breathed out. And they had to put fake blossoms on the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of they carted that in by the truckloads to plant
Yeah.
them. So
Easy.
So they took that like opening shot, which is a big pan. I actually really liked like the crawl in the beginning, like the credits in the beginning,
yeah,
and then
I
the
loved it.
opening pan. Like it's just I kind of miss that with movies. Like you don't do that anymore, because I say that now, and if every movie did that, I'd be like, where the fuck is the movie? Right? Like instantly. But I really liked that. I mean, what a cool coast and all that. It was great.
Yeah, no, I did like that. I just thought there was I have my other note here is the strong juxtaposition between many of the beliefs that Howie had and the Summerisle inhabitants. So the free attitudes about sexuality that the townsfolk have compared to the strict blocking and repressing sexual feelings in Howie, right? Who's a virgin thanks to his religion, demanding that he must go through a ritual first, right? Marriage before he can have sex. And then like one of them worships the sun, right? The sun god, S-U-N, and the other worships the son of God, S-O-N, like the sort of play on the homophone there. I like that. I mean, just an English nerd.
Fancy words, eh?
I like that. I don't know, for a movie that doesn't have much happening. I don't know. It captivated me the whole way through. There was such a sense of place there too, and a lot of the other actors weren't really actors. They were just local townsfolk outside of the main cast that they just they put in there for some.
They really just burn people all the time. That's what they do.
Well, he was really Woodward was really in the Wicker Man when they lit it on fire.
And
he-
a
Oh my
goat
God.
pissed on
And-
it.
They claim some people claim some animals died when they were
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Other people
apparently,
say
the
none
director.
did.
Take it for what it's worth, right? Like, because again, this is a long time ago at this point. So some people are like, yeah, some animals definitely die, which I believe, because this is
Yeah.
the 70s.
When in movies did that become like verboten? Like,
That's
I
a
know,
good
like,
question, right? That's
there was
when
some
was
point
it?
in time
What's
I
the
know where it became like a big deal.
what's the inception
Not
of
to
PETA?
like to protect
I
the
have
animals
to
and stuff.
check. I don't know. But I will say that the director said he tried really hard to keep, so who knows, right? Like
They said Woodward said when they so what's her face? What's her name? Rowan sets the trap for him, right? He thinks she's being sacrificed. He runs up to save her. He's dressed like the fool, right? Like that
Yep.
actual character. So he meets all the
is amazing.
requirements, right? He meets all the requirements of what they wanted. They wanted an adult virgin. They wanted a king, and they use that to sort of mean you're a law enforcement officer
Person
who
of
rules.
authority.
Person of
right?
authority. You're a fool. Of course, he's literally steals the fool's outfit, doesn't know it. Where is that? Anyways, and so he comes to get her. She leads him on a fake chase and leads him right back to the townsfolk. And as he's being led by the big dude in handcuffs or whatever over the hill to where you first get a glimpse of the actual giant Wicker Man structure, his reaction is legit. He did not want to see the Wicker Man before, or the setting before it was filmed. That's his first look at it. So
I read that too.
He knew how he was supposed to react, but part of that was also a genuine, like, this is kind of scary. Like, he knew he was going to go in. They're going to put me in that, and they're actually going to light it on fire. So yeah, no, all of it's so good. And then because we've been conditioned, because we all came up at the right time with the heroes of the 80s and 90s and that whole trope, I kept waiting for, how does he escape? Who's going to save him at the last minute?
Right.
And no fucking way. This is the early 70s.
Spoiler alert. He doesn't make it.
Nobody saves him. He burns to death. The Wicker Man structure, the head falls backwards, and we see revealed just the setting sun on that. And it's dark and it's bleak. And I think it's a fucking cold, godless movie because of that.
Way to end it. Great
right?
way to end
Wonderful way to, I mean, it is, that's what really ticks up the points for me on the rating scale.
Yeah.
I did have some I know we don't do research on it, but I did have some tidbits I thought were interesting. So there were some cut scenes. There was like an original director's cut, which had had some scenes to it. There was, let's see, there was a screening for the New York City police detectives. They screened this film as part of their investigation into the Son of Sam murders. This was due to the killer making a reference to a quote, wicked King Wicker, end quote, in one of his letters, leading some to believe that there was a connection between the film and the murders. And that was something I wanted to touch on too, is especially with the time frame here in the early 70s and how there's this sort of cult, you know, Lord Summerisle Christopher Lee has this sort of cult, a very express cult vibe to him.
Yep.
Like I didn't do the research on it, but how many cults were we in then? I mean, I think
a lot.
It was right around Jim Jones. Too,
Jim Jones was 75, I think. So it's like that means
they may have been known about before the Jonestown. Yeah,
it's going on.
Yeah,
right?
It's happening, and of course, Helter Skelter. You know, Manson had already happened,
and Lord knows how many other cults that we don't know now.
Right, that didn't get global acclaim historically over the years, but surely were going on at that time. Let's see. Neil Howie is shocked to learn that the pagans of Summerisle believe in parthenogenesis, which is the virgin birth. When trying to dismiss their belief, Lord Summerisle reminds him that Christians believe in the virgin birth of Jesus.
Yeah.
So the implication is that Howie sort of fails to recognize the pagan elements in his own religion, you know, as he's...
That is fascinating now that you bring it up, because it struck me as kind of like, why can't you make that leap? That seems like that's like we talk about that every year at Christmas, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think this really reveals a lot of blind spots that people have when they grow up under whatever system of beliefs they have. And it reveals the hypocrisy for one, and it reveals the folly for two, and it reveals for three, the sort of nihilism behind this. These are arbitrary. It's as arbitrary as putting the frog in your mouth to get rid of the sore throat, which she does at some point.
That sounds like a very old wives' tale.
I know, but you know, it's
like a Scottish old wives' tale.
Oh, for sure. No, the cast. A lot of the cast actually spent time looking up. Now they pulled them all together. They cobbled them together, but these are old wives' tales. These are real pagan rituals. Yes. So it wasn't crazy, you know, cutting off an animal's head and hanging it over a doorway. It was little things like that, you know?
Yeah.
Talismans and
like, I'll tell you one that I mean, you guys probably do stuff like this. I work with British people all the time and with my company.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And you know, we do, or at least most of or a lot of us in the US, we do knock on wood when we're trying to be like, for good luck, right? Knock on wood.
Right.
They do touch wood, and touch wood. I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. Touch wood is crazy. You knock on wood, to scare away the demons.
Right? You ball it up. What? You drill a hole in the skull to release the demons. That's
exactly. Right? Like they're all over the place.
Go ahead,
Here's
Jeannie.
what it was the U.S. re-release was scheduled for November 78, but was pushed to January 79 due to the Jonestown massacre that happened in that month.
There you go.
That's
79.
I
thought it was 75. Oh.
It was 78.
Wow. 78. Wow.
Yeah, no, I love the whole thing. I mean, speaking of the Jeannie, you mentioned way early on the Green Man.
Yeah.
Right, which was the tavern, the inn there that they have. So the Islands Inn is named after the Green Man. The Green Man is a folklore figure, a symbol of rebirth, which represented the cycle of new growth that occurs every spring. The Green Knight in Arthurian legend, in the Arthurian tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight from the 14th century, is thought to represent the medieval rendering of this tale.
And I don't know this for sure, but I think Swamp Thing and Man Thing, whatever the two characters in Marvel and DC that are like, you know, the guardians of nature are both based loosely on the Green Man. Right?
Yeah.
Like in those legends. I mean, like that's what they do, right?
What did you guys think of? I mean, I know that there was Easy, Vinny. I know that there was the spiritual sequel in quotation marks many years later. Do you think that there could have been a legitimate sequel to this, like within a couple of years? I feel like you could have written something from that. You don't even need Howie to survive, but you have someone...
Actually, what I think would have worked really well is to have that village falling apart, right?
It's the next
then-
cycle of spring. You're coming
Yeah.
around the next year.
And then show the aftermath of like nothing worked. Now what happens? Like what happens when a cult starts to fail?
right.
Right. I think
Because-
that could have been cool.
Right, because Lord Summerisle knows that he's a grifter, right? He knows that it's a grift because his own
Because-
grandfather created the crops, the special things for the crop. It had nothing to do with sacrifice or belief in old gods or any of that stuff. And you can almost see that actually at the very end, right before Howie is dragged away to be burned to death. He tries to give one last speech, right, to convince the town folks, you're committing murder, and this guy is a bullshitter, and your crops are going to die because the soil here is infertile and it's not fit for these kinds of crops on the island. And
But it's more
next
about
year,
the climate than the soil.
I think he
the
did
cli-
climb. I think
it was a
Michael
climate.
did.
Okay, so the climate's not good for it. But next year,
Fruit
when they
trees
don't
do
grow,
well in
Yeah.
Scotland.
It was like a tropical plant, and they had it in freaking Scotland, right?
right,
Yeah,
right. But
there
the idea,
was.
but the idea,
Grow apples there. Do they grow apples in Scotland?
I don't know.
Seems like something they
I
would grow
don't
there.
know.
it's
I bet so. I mean, because there's apples grown in Washington, and that kind of has a similar climate. I would
That
think.
seems
Yeah.
reasonable, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
and, like,
Scotland does
New
get
York.
pretty cold.
I think they had a lot of apple orchards. But
Yeah,
You think Scotland what?
gets pretty goddamn cold. But
Yeah.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
but so does upstate New York. So so maybe.
All right,
I just
guys.
don't know.
we got anything else for themes? Because otherwise, we're ready to rock and roll here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
No,
good.
I think you nailed it.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us once again for another episode of Chopping It Up. Our mini episodes for Prime Cuts. We'll come back next week and we'll have something else on the table. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, hang on. Why can't I do this? It's asking me to refresh. Ow, Vinny.
I guess. Well, she's gonna cut the damn tape.
There we go.